Hey, what is going on, guys? Max Settings here, and welcome back to another review. In today's review, we're going to be taking a look at the S.M.S.L SP200 headphone amplifier. Now, before we get into today's review, I just have to give a big shout out to APOS Audio for providing this for review. APOS Audio is an online audio retailer that carries many different brands, and they were kind enough to loan both this SP200 as well as the matching M200 DAC for this review. I will link their store in the description below, and depending on when you're watching this, they are currently doing a Black Friday sale on both of these units. They are giving discounts on each one separately, or you can buy both of them as a coherent stack. But once again, big thanks to them for providing these for review, and let's go ahead and hop on into the video. Now, the S.M.S.L SP200 is a THX based headphone amplifier, and this is using THX's Flagship AAA 888 topology, which is the same topology that the $3,000 benchmark HP A4 uses. And the SP200, in a lot of ways, has more or less, I'd say, taken the spot as king of the THX amplifiers for a lot of people. There are higher end THX amplifiers such as S.M.S.L's own SH9, and I think they also recently launched the SP400, I think that just came out. I forget the exact name of it, but some 400 amplifier. And there's also more expensive ones like the Mass Drop 789 and the Monoprice 887. But technically, the SP200 is using THX's highest end amplification technology, and it is also more or less the cheapest full-size THX amplifier, at least to my memory. So the SP200 comes in at a normal price of $266. It is currently on sale for $226. So it is a pretty cheap amplifier in general. And I actually did own one of these early this year for about 3 weeks. I never reviewed it, and I replaced it with the shit Ragnarok when I got that. I no longer own the Ragnarok, but that is what replaced this for me. But here we are. I will review it now. So let's go ahead and get into specs. So as I already mentioned, the SP200 is $266 at its normal price. It has 6 watts at 16 ohms, 3 watts at 32 ohms, 440 milliwatts at 300 ohms, and 220 milliwatts at 600 ohms. So it is quite a powerful amplifier. It does not have as much power as the 789, but it's still pretty much more power than anybody would ever need. And now as for a physical tour of the unit, so it is an all-metal construction all around. It feels very solid in the hand. The only low point of the build for me is this knob. This is kind of a cheap feeling knob. It's not loose and wobbly like the M200's knob is, but it's too easy to turn in my opinion. It just feels very just kind of cheap and light, and it feels like it needs a little bit more resistance and a higher quality knob. On the front here, you do have these toggle switches, which I actually like these toggle switches. They're very satisfying to click. So there's your power, your XLR or RCA input, and then your high-low gain switch. And yeah, these are very, very easy to use, and I actually like these better than the menu system that controls these features on the higher-end S.M.S.L HS or SH9, pardon me. So yeah, the build of this overall is very nice. Once again, if you can get over the slant, which again I think looks worse in pictures. In person, I can't really tell from my day-to-day usage of the slant, but I digress. Now, the one thing this does lack compared to the Monoprice and Mass Drop THX amp offerings is an RCA pass-through, which is not necessarily a huge deal because not everybody is going to be feeding this balance or this through RCA. If you're feeding it through RCA, then you can loop the RCAs out to something else, maybe like a tube amp. But most people are probably going to be using a balanced DAC input, which doesn't really matter. But just something to note that there is no pass-through on the SP200. Now, the other thing I did want to point out is the SP200 has ridiculous amounts of gain. When you're feeding it with an XLR DAC, on low gain, I have never found a headphone that needed to go more than like 12 o'clock. Even when I had this thing with like the HE6, on low gain, it was loud at like here. And you will never need high gain on this if you're feeding it with an XLR DAC. With an RCA DAC, the gain stage seems to be a lot lower. So you might need high gain for a few things. But with an XLR DAC, I mean, big like HD 800, most harder to drive planars are like here. That's about all you need, is about like that much. It has stupid gain and stupid power. So just something I wanted to note. It is not as finite of a gain control as it is with the 7, 8, 9. And even on RCA inputs, on low gain, I found this thing pretty much unusable with IEMs unless I went down here to the DAC and cut like 15 dB off the line volume. Because even with RCAs, you're like nothing to loud is like here, and with XLR it's like that much. So you really have to cut something off your line volume if you want to use this with the IEM. It's because the gain stage is just too high, in my opinion. Okay, so now moving into the sound segment here of the SP200. So my comparison with this was with the Schiit Magnus, which is a little bit cheaper, coming in at a $200. And the Magnus's advantage over this is more power, and it also has a preamp, which this does not, and it's also cheaper. So the SP200 to me is a lot more analytical than the Magnus. Now the Magnus itself is not, I would say, tremendously unanalytical, if that makes sense. It is, I'd say, a little bit more analytical sounding than a lot of Schiit amplifiers, but the Magnus is a bit warmer than the SP200 is, and it's also a little bit more dynamic and has better microdynamics in particular. That was always the one area that I had issue with the THX amps, is they're not the most dynamic amps in the world, particularly in microdynamics. They kind of smear everything together, which some people do like if you like a very, very analytical sound, which that's always pretty much been the staple of the THX amplifiers. So the SP200 is just a very analytical and very, very clean sounding amplifier. It's not a very, very fun amplifier. It's not very warm and not super, super engaging. It's just a very clean, dry, and analytical sounding amplifier, which to me personally is not my cup of tea, but some people do like that and do prefer that. And if you like that, this is a good choice for you for $260 or $225 or whatever it is right now on sale. This is a very solid headphone amplifier pick for the money. It has tons of power. It's very, very small and unobtrusive. Gives you full balanced output. And yeah, it is a solid headphone amplifier pick for those of you that are looking for a very analytical pick. But if you want something, I'd say a little bit more warm and engaging, you can either go with like the Magnus or the Asgard 3, which are both a little bit warmer and I'd say a little bit more engaging than the SP200 is. But all in all, SP200 is still a very good pick for the right person. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my review of the S.M.S.L SP200. Once again, thanks to APOS Audio for providing this for review. Links of where to buy this in the description below, as well as my Twitter, my contact email, and all the relevant information. And don't forget to check out the Black Friday sale from APOS Audio. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.